Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something that might make you think, ouch, but really shouldn't hurt at all?
Hmm.
We're going to be talking about hair transplants today.
Ooh, exciting.
I know, right? And I know, just the thought of it might make some of you cringe a little.
Yeah, for sure.
But stick with us because we're going to be breaking it all down based on a really interesting podcast called PROFUE Talks.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that one.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some good stuff. And hopefully by the end of this deep dive, you'll feel way more confident about the whole hair transplant thing.
Yeah, knowledge is power, right.
Exactly. They really emphasize the whole personalized consultation thing.
Yeah.
What stood out to you about that in terms of why it's so important for hair transplants?
You know, it really hit me that it's not just about how good the surgeon is,
Right.
but also about them understanding your own goals and stuff, like what
Right.
you're anxious about,
Yeah.
what you want to get out of it.
Right.
PROFUE Talks made a good point that losing your hair is such a personal thing,
Definitely.
and a good provider will really listen to you and figure out what you want.
Yeah, not just give everyone the same cookie cutter solution.
Exactly. That's what they said.
I'll admit, one of my first thoughts was, oh man, what if I end up with that super obvious pluggy look? Like, the old school hair plugs.
Right.
Pretty sure I'm not the only one who worries about that.
You're definitely not alone.
PROFUE Talks actually brought that up too, and they said that modern techniques can totally avoid that.
Oh, for sure. Technology has come a long way.
Okay, good.
They talked about techniques like sapphire FUE,
Uh-huh.
which uses sapphire blades.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be super precise.
So you get like tiny incisions.
Exactly. Smaller incisions mean less scarring and you heal up quicker.
Oh, wow.
That's definitely something you should ask about when you go for a consultation.
Sapphire blades, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds a lot more high-tech than what I was picturing.
Uh-huh.
But even with those fancy blades, I gotta ask,
Well, what's up?
how much does this actually hurt?
Oh, right.
PROFUE Talks made it sound like a walk in the park.
Well, maybe not quite a walk in the park.
Okay.
But they're not totally wrong either.
Okay.
The key is they use local anesthesia.
Okay. Like at the dentist.
Exactly. You're
Okay.
numbed up, so you shouldn't feel any serious pain.
Oh, okay. So maybe not a walk in the park, but more like sitting in a comfy dentist's chair.
Uh-huh. Yeah, something like that.
I can handle that.
Okay.
But what about the recovery time?
Oh, yeah.
Like how long before you can go back to your normal life after a hair transplant?
Well, this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
PROFUE Talks said that most people are back to their normal routine in just a few days.
A few days.
Yeah, they were talking about how minimally invasive these modern transplants are. Less trauma to your scalp means you heal faster.
Wow. I was thinking it would be weeks of hiding under a hat.
Nope.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what did they say about what you can and can't do during that recovery time?
They said that every clinic will give you specific instructions,
Sure.
but generally you might need to use special shampoos for a bit,
Okay.
avoid doing anything too strenuous, and you might even have to sleep in a certain position for a while.
Oh, wow.
But, it's a small price to pay for getting the hair you want, right?
Yeah, totally worth it if it works.
Exactly.
Now, they kept saying PROFUE, but what I'm curious about is, besides the name, what really sets one clinic or provider apart from another?
Good question.
Is it just the technique they use? Like,
Okay.
is Sapphire FUE always better than DHI, or is there more to it?
That's a really smart question.
Thanks.
And it's not just about the technique, although those are obviously important.
Yeah.
PROFUE Talks also talked a lot about how experienced the medical team is.
Right.
They really emphasized making sure you find surgeons who are board certified in hair restoration.
Makes sense. You want someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And you want a clinic with really good facilities, of course.
Right. The whole package.
Yeah. And of course, you want a place that really cares about its patients and supports them through the whole process.
Yeah. That makes a big difference.
It's not just about the name of the technique or the tools they use.
It's like choosing any other medical professional.
Exactly.
You want to look at their credentials and their experience and all of that.
Right. So how do you think people should go about finding a reputable provider in their area?
That's a good question.
Like, what are the right questions to ask when you go for a consultation?
Well, first of all, do your research.
Good advice.
Start online.
Okay.
Look at reviews. Look at before and after photos.
Yeah.
Try to get a sense of what the clinic is like. But most importantly,
Yeah,
don't be shy about asking questions during your consultation.
for sure.
Make a list of questions beforehand. Ask about the surgeon's experience,
Yeah.
the specific technique they recommend for you,
So
their aftercare process, everything you can think of.
that's great advice.
It's all about feeling confident and comfortable with your choice.
Absolutely.
I'm already feeling a lot more informed just from this conversation.
Me too. Me too.
We've covered a lot of ground here,
Yeah.
but there's still more to unpack.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's move on to the next phase of this deep dive, and we'll share even more insights from PROFUE Talks.
Sounds good. You know, one thing that really stood out to me in PROFUE Talks
Yeah.
was how much they've talked about the psychological impact of losing your hair.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, it's not just about the physical changes.
It's so true. I mean, we all know that hair loss is a sensitive topic.
Right.
But PROFUE Talks really brought home how much it can affect your confidence.
And your self-esteem.
Exactly.
They made a really good point about how that lack of confidence can actually affect other parts of your life.
Yeah, that makes
Like your
sense.
relationships, your career, all sorts of things.
It's all connected.
Yeah, it's not just about vanity.
Right. It's about your whole well-being.
Exactly.
It sounds like PROFUE has a really compassionate approach.
They do. They really seem to care about their patients and how they feel.
That's great.
It's not just about the technical stuff.
Speaking of the procedure,
Yeah.
I was wondering, how long does it actually take to see results?
Oh, good question.
They mentioned it in the podcast, but I wasn't sure if there was like a standard timeline or something.
It's definitely something you should ask any provider you're thinking of going to.
Okay.
PROFUE Talks pointed out that hair growth is a slow process, so you got to be patient.
Right.
It's different for everyone, but usually you start to see some new growth after a few months.
So it's not like an instant transformation.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
It's more like gradual.
So it takes time.
Yeah.
Okay, so during that whole process,
Mm.
what about the aftercare?
Yeah.
Are there things you need to do or avoid to take care of those new hairs?
PROFUE Talks had some really good advice about that. They said every clinic has their own way of doing things.
Right.
But in general, you just need to be gentle with your scalp, especially at first.
Makes sense.
Like they said, you might need to use special shampoos,
Oh, okay.
maybe avoid some activities or even sleep in a certain way.
It's like you just had tiny little hairs put in there.
Exactly.
You want to make sure they actually grow.
You don't want to mess anything up.
Right.
It's all about making sure those hair follicles have the best chance of surviving.
Now, one thing that really impressed me in PROFUE Talks was how they talked about the results being permanent.
Yeah.
It sounded like once you get those transplanted hairs, they're there to stay.
Yeah, they were pretty clear about that.
Wow.
They explained that those transplanted follicles are basically programmed to keep growing.
So it's not like some treatments where you have to keep using products forever?
Nope, not at all.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So once those hairs grow in, they're yours for good.
Pretty much, yeah.
It seems like a huge advantage.
It is, but they did say that hair transplants aren't for everyone.
Right. I was thinking there are probably cases where it's not the right solution.
Exactly. Like they said, some types of hair loss just don't work with transplants.
So that's why that initial consultation is so important.
Exactly.
They can tell you if you're a good candidate or not.
And they can explain all your options.
It all comes back to that personalized approach.
It does. It really does.
It sounds like hair transplants have come a long way from those old plugs you used to see.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Remember those?
I do. They didn't look so good.
PROFUE Talks said the technology keeps getting better and better.
Uh-huh.
They said the goal now is to make it look as natural as possible.
Which is great because it's all about making people feel good about themselves.
Yeah, it's awesome that there are good options out there for people who are struggling with hair loss.
Absolutely.
It's great that PROFUE is so open about the whole process.
Yeah, they talk about the good and the bad.
It's really refreshing. Well, we've covered a lot, but there's still more to talk about.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Let's finish up this part of the deep dive, and then we'll come back and wrap things up with some final thoughts.
Sounds good.
Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into hair transplants.
Back again.
I have to say, I'm feeling way less stressed about this whole thing.
Really?
Yeah, way more knowledgeable.
Good.
After listening to PROFUE Talks and talking to you.
That's great.
You know, one thing that keeps coming back to me
Yeah. What's that?
is the connection between hair loss and your confidence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And like how restoring your hair can really boost your self-esteem.
Right. PROFUE Talks mentioned how a lot of their patients come in feeling really down
Yeah, it makes...
about losing their hair.
Right.
and it's affecting how they feel about themselves.
It's a big deal. I mean, let's face it. Yeah. We live in a society where having a full head of hair is seen as ideal.
Especially for men.
Yeah, especially for men.
There's so much pressure to fit in with those beauty standards. It makes you wonder, though, right?
What do you mean?
Like with hair transplants becoming more popular and easier to get, could that actually change how we see hair loss in the future?
You think so?
I mean, it's possible, right?
Like, will it become less of a taboo subject?
Maybe.
Will we start to see more variety in what's considered attractive?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't have a crystal ball or anything.
Me neither.
But it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe it'll make people feel more comfortable talking about hair loss.
I hope so.
And they'll feel more empowered to do what they want.
To make their own choices.
Right, regardless of what society says.
They'll be amazing.
Yeah, it would.
At the end of the day, it's all about feeling good about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Whether you get a hair transplant or not.
That's what PROFUE Talks really made me realize.
It's
not about trying to look like some perfect ideal.
Right.
It's about taking control of your hair journey.
Yeah, and finding a solution that works for you. And feeling good about your decision.
Exactly.
So yeah, for anyone out there who's thinking about a hair transplant,
yeah,
but maybe feeling a little overwhelmed or unsure,
I hope this deep dive has helped.
it's always good to do your research.
Absolutely.
Especially with something like this.
Yeah.
And remember, the best decision is the one that works for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of hair transplants.
This was fun.
It was fascinating, wasn't it?
It really was.
Thanks for sticking with us, everyone.
And remember, if you're thinking about getting a hair transplant,
or just curious about it,
there are great resources out there.
Like PROFUE Talks?
Yeah, they really know their stuff.
Okay, that's it for this deep dive.
Until
then, stay curious, keep learning, and embrace your own unique hair journey.